apačio, iš viršaus. Ir mano uždaryti, ar ne? Hello, we are about to start, so please take your seats and come from the back. Ilya, Alexei, you're more than welcome to take the front row seats to fill up the space. So welcome everyone. I'm very happy to welcome you at Rockit, the home for FinTech and innovation here in Vilnius, Lithuania, and proudly say practically the whole region. So today we meet to discuss about alliance between FinTech and startups, about the cooperation, myths and realities. We hope that some of the myths will get busted, or maybe you will let us know the new ones that are existing in the market. So what we hear from the startups running a FinTech community every day, basically that some say that without partnership, it's impossible to create a viable, sustainable business. Some say that partnering with banks is not much of a pie for the FinTechs regarding the growth and the speed they can provide for the market. Some say that so today, Ekaterina will try to cover both parts. As well, we have Ruta from the regulators approach, as usually National Bank of Lithuania is listed among the top innovators supporting ecosystem. So we'll see how that happens in reality. So I'm happy to welcome Ekaterina Bitus, the head of startup partnership at Swedbank, to introduce her panelists of today. And I wish a good discussion and be ready for the questions. I hope you came at least prepared with a couple of them. So enjoy the evening and have a great discussion.
Thank you. Hello, so glad to see you today. Honestly speaking, I was waiting for a while for this discussion. I have some questions that I would like to bring on top and for discussion for you. And many thanks for Rasa, our event manager, that she put this topic on the agenda. And actually, it was her idea to organize that event on the topic. So let me introduce our guest. So Donatas, he has over 15 years in banking business, started his career in the front line and grow his experience in pan-European level. And now he's responsible for the very interesting thing, the transformation of Medicinos bankers in terms of digital channels. Okay, one more very interesting guest, Titas. He's an extremely interesting person because he has seen it all from all sides of the table. So he has worked at a commercial bank, at central bank. He's a CEO of 7Seas Europe Payment Institution, and as well he's a CEO of FinTech Hub Lithuania. Please welcome. I'm as well very glad to introduce my colleague from Swedbank, Regimantas. He's a B2B partnership-based product creation guy. So he's experienced their manager in creating products with third parties and piloting them. Welcome. Liudas, he is an expert in FinTech problems and challenges, a really great one, as he is one of the first, he has actually started the first e-money institution in Lithuania, and now he is servicing that kind of companies and institutions with KYC solutions. Welcome. As well, I'm very glad to introduce Andrew from Meninga. He's head of rewards partnership at Meninga. Meninga is the leading fintech that works with banks to personalize their digital customer experience and create new revenue streams from data. Very interesting topic. And Andrew is based in Stockholm, and he has been in Meninga for 5 years. And one interesting fact about him that he has started his own tech startup. Welcome, Andrew. And as well, Ruta is smiling already to me, so now it's your time to step into the stage. Yeah, welcome. She's an expert in she's as well an expert, of course. We're inviting all the experts. So she's responsible for supervising over 100 licensed FinTech companies at Bank of Lithuania. And she's actually impatiently waiting for the Brexit. And Guess why? Lithuania currently is the number 2 after UK by the number of issued licenses. And guess what happens after Brexit? We tend to be number 1. Okay, so welcome our dear guests. So let's start warming up by introducing shortly our experience of cooperation. So Donatas, first word to you.
1-1?
Yeah.
Okay, it's working.
Okay.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me here. So, as you mentioned, yeah, I'm in the banking industry more than 15 years, and basically past 10 years I'm working with the change management, and more of my time I spent with IT guys and business transformation. So past 3 years is more focused on multi-channel strategy. So bank as a medicinal bank, as the main focus is financing small, medium enterprises. And I hope you're doing quite well in this area. And even today, you're able to find such wonderful products on our website. So that's it, probably.
So tell us, what is your experience in cooperation with banks in several sentences, please?
Hello, everyone. For the last 3 years, I've been working as a CEO for several FinTechs, electronic money institutions. Before, I worked in a central bank. And a few months ago, recently, I became the head of association, FinTech Association Lithuania, which has 35 members, which obviously all of them have some kind of relationship with banks. And I would say that that relationship is very limited and very complicated. And I think the reason why we are here today, I guess, to discuss why, first of all, and then, to discuss if there are any possible ways to kind of make it better.
Yeah, definitely we'll discuss that. So, Regimante, what do you do?
I am Regimantas, and basically me, together with my team, we are integrating products into Swedbank digital channels mostly, and we put them to the market. So basically, cooperation-wise products on B2B side. So later on, through the questions, I will be able to share experience, how we did it, what we did, and so on.
Thank you. Ludas?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, my name is Ludas. So I kind of happened that I was always responsible for the business development. So in the electronic money institution, I was building the relationships with the banks in the Europe, mostly outside Europe as well. Now building the relationship with the financial institutions from the other perspective, that we're kind of having the solution that helps with some issues. So that's my experience with the financial industry.
And true, it's not a secret that you are cooperating with Swedbank. So maybe a few sentences. What is your story and how it all started?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. My name is Andrew Harper from Meninga. Yeah, we're working with Swedbank in Sweden and the Baltics as well. As mentioned, I've been with the company for 5 years. And the kind of history of the company is it was born basically kind of to align our destiny to work with banks. So we're a white label software provider, 10 years old now, working with over 30 banks in over 30 countries. I haven't been involved in all of these, but hopefully can bring some experience of what it's like from the FinTech side. And realized I wore completely the wrong socks for the event based on the picture before. Needs to be more colorful.
Okay, thank you. Ruta, a question for you. It's a bit different. Maybe you could say how Lithuanian National Bank helps FinTechs to cooperate with banks.
So firstly, hello everyone. I'm glad to be here. So basically, our central bank, we are the place who have under our roof both FinTechs and banks, and we can see both of them having all this innovation happening. So our aim is not just to boost FinTechs itself, but to boost banks to innovate. And we have a lot of programs what we encourage both FinTechs to participate, like Regulatory Sandbox, Newcomer Program, Albert Chain Regulatory Sandbox, and other initiatives that we see the possibility for banks and FinTechs to cooperate.
Well, I can add up actually. Before this, all the FinTech topic was even popular. around 5 years ago, when we came up with the idea to cooperate with third parties, not regulation-based cooperation. We approached actually Lithuanian FSA, Lithuanian Central Bank, with the rather question: can we at all do that? Because in a banking law it was written like so, not clear. Can we do? Can we don't? And actually we received a note that we are okay to do the ideas. And then right now, 5 years afterwards, we see that there are a lot of innovations happening, and this is really good. So I can only say that probably FSA is doing as well quite an important role in the innovation for the banks in the market as well.
Yeah, and this actually supports my next statement, which I would like to challenge. Is it me for reality that Lithuania is the best market for fintechs to partner with banks? So, guys, can we really judge it by knowing how good we are in Vilnius only? Maybe we shall compare, try to compare us with other countries. Maybe we were not so good as we pretend to be. So, Donatas, what is your experience with other countries and cooperation?
Yeah, so the first touch point with the German fintech we had more than 6 years ago. It was the fintech, it's called Rising. Probably you heard about them. They're one of the popular fintech in Germany. And the main business, what they're helping to financial institutions to attract deposits. And yeah, 6 years ago was very hard to understand what kind of policy will have Central Bank of Lithuania in case of cooperation with that fintech in cross-border manner. What helped us actually in cooperation with Rising that the team which was deployed to sign the contract and to go deeply to all details, they were really, I would say, professional in the banking industry. They knew it, what kind of data they should provide to make an agreement between private individual and financial institution in terms of when you wanted to sign a term deposit contract. And they knew it all aspects according to SEPA payments, ML, and QAC. So we were very impressed about that. So today, Medicinos Bankas here, we have cooperation with Rising. So we attract and deposit in German and Austrian market. We're so happy because the data, what kind of comes from them, what kind of tickets of term deposit, what we have, it's really amazing. Really amazing. And well, yeah, from our perspective, we're saying that we did a good choice. The second cooperation, what we have, it's a Swedish startup. They're changing the name, but the name is today in our system we called Ident2Way. And in a daughter company of consumer financing, what we do, so we're using this application for remote customer identification. Probably a little bit.
Thank you for your experience, Titas. I think
Donatas, any Lithuanian fintechs you cooperate with? Out of
Good
200, around 200 fintechs in Lithuania? So yeah, obviously this is my answer. Yeah, if Lithuania, I would say, is one of the worst jurisdictions for fintechs to do business with banks. For me personally, I visited and talked with every single bank in Lithuania. All of them, or most of them, rejected even operational account for a fintech like us. And okay, by fintech, what I mean, and might be a bit different, what others would call fintech is that fintech must, and I think central bank will agree with me, must provide financial services. And these are usually 90%, 90-something% of the time are licensed. So obviously I'm talking about licensed financial services to consumers or businesses, right? For these kind of fintechs, it's nearly impossible to have any cooperation with banks in Lithuania, starting from operational accounts for your business expenses, office, salaries, and so on, going to segregated accounts where you keep the client funds in euros or other currencies, or even the payments for the clients. And there have been some, I know probably the cases in Lithuania where the bank cooperates with fintech, you can count them on one hand.
What about the other countries?
Yeah, I guess, later we can go a bit into reasons why, but okay, probably
Yeah, but,
allow others to share their experience.
But maybe Titas, you know, your members of the your association, maybe they partner more in other countries. So maybe you can point some other countries.
Yeah, of course. So when this happens, what do? You go to other countries, and I think now most of our members, most of the licensed fintech companies, we go to UK banks, we go to banks in Poland, Latvia, Romania, even banks or partnerships outside European Union, which is kind of a norm, and you just have no choice. Kudos to the Central Bank of Lithuania for having central link payment system that kind of solves a bit of the problem here. It provides SEPA Euro payments. And this is, in my opinion, the main reason why all these fintechs come to Lithuania from abroad, and this solves part of the problem. But other part, where other currencies, other payments, is definitely not solved. And we have
so
what
this
we
is
have.
this is really like a good problem, and thank you for bringing it.
Yeah.
So we probably
I just
get
would
back.
like to make some reflection what he said.
Please.
Risings, they had the same problem in Germany. The first partners, what they had from the banking industry, it was bank from Bulgaria. And that case was for them the selling point for other financial institutions. So what I wanted to say, probably your market, not here, maybe you could operate from here, but to serve the customers somewhere else. I mean, maybe, as you said, you should go to the Poland market.
Of course, I agree. But look, Raisin, the business model of Raisin is to get higher interest rates for deposits. Obviously, you go to a country like Bulgaria or Lithuania to get it rather than Germany, because maybe Germany has very low deposits. So I don't think it's a very good example. But yeah, of course, for us, maybe it makes sense to go to markets where we have end user, and we do that. But of course, we want to have end users here as well. And this is one of the main requirements from central bank to have a license here, is that you serve Lithuanian people or Lithuanian businesses. And we want to do that, but yeah, we kind of struggle.
Yeah, let's get back to this a bit later. I would like to hear, like, Regimantas, your thinking about get back to my question. Do we consider that Lithuania is a best market for fintechs to cooperate with banks, or we see some other countries how they are doing and they need to copy their experience with pride?
Well, I would believe that the banks are pretty similar in the whole world. So I don't see really much of the difference. I don't want to go to the details, let's say, which specific fields are underserved by the banks, let's say, and what fintechs can offer here. I think it's totally the same in US, UK, Germany, and so on. There is no difference. And of course, when you invest, let's say, as a fintech, you usually invest initially quite a lot. So the probability of return, let's say, to the investors and shareholders in Lithuania to get back the money is rather lower from the market size point of view than to do that in UK, in Germany, and other mature and bigger markets. But I would say the problem which you can solve for the customer is completely the same. I studied actually the end user, let's say, especially in B2B. I will not talk in B2C because it's not my field. In B2B, so let's say small size lending is still an absolute opening to fintechs to solve. There are some payment solutions which are still completely open to the field to solve. So regulations-wise, it's a good place. Market size, probably not so much. So I would say we are somewhere in the middle. And reflecting to what Titas has said, so I think we work closely with Aurelius. Probably there has not been a time in our 4 or 5 years when we have said to somebody who wanted to meet us and offer something from B2B side, and here is Baltic-wise, not only Lithuania, I don't think we ever said no. We met everybody who wanted to approach us, and we openly even discussed about the business model of theirs, of us, and how we do cooperate. But if you approach and you say, please purchase this service and pay us this amount of money, well, this is not necessarily going to happen. So it depends, of course, on the details.
Thank you. So, Ludas, a question to you. You serve the FinTechs, and probably they are from different countries. From your perspective, Lithuania comparing to other countries.
So I now understand what's the role of Titas and me actually in this discussion. Yeah. So
bad guys? No.
Your role
so
is different.
in general, the doing business here, the fintech business is really good. Yeah. So basically, we have the resources, we have people around, we have the competence and all the stuff. But I would like to split that into kind of two basically lines. Yeah. So the first is if you're the fintech or the paytech or something like that. So of course it's not easy to get the account or something in the banks here because there's just a few of those. Then the competition is kind of limited. It's really much easier to get the account in Poland or something than to do that in Lithuania, an example. And if you're going deeper into the payment fields or something, so maybe you remember the times that we had to scrape the sites and to do the things and all the stuff just in order to get the under one table basically for the discussion. Yeah, so for the partnership. So I don't call it a real partnership. On the other hand, if you're giving something to the industry itself, to some kind of solutions, so then it's really easy to access the people because the community is closed and yes, they're really open, discussing all the questions and all the stuff. But Lithuanians are actually not so supportive to each other than the other nations. We have much more clients outside Lithuania than in Lithuania, and to discuss here, it takes longer time. You have to convince more people with giving more effort than doing that in other countries. And in some nations, they're really much more supportive to each other and to the solutions that are invented locally and to the people that are doing something locally, even from the perspective of the accounts and all the stuff. If what Titas mentioned, to give the example of TransferWise as an example, so for them, to develop the infrastructure they needed at the very beginning, it was much easier to do that locally than for the Lithuanian companies that we have TransferGo, an example here, to do the same here. And that's why they had to go to UK and all the stuff. So there are two aspects of that.
Thank you. Before we jump to you, Andrea, I would like to remind the audience that you can ask your own questions in our Menti platform. So please look on the upper side of the screen. So you see the code you need to use. So we're waiting for your questions. And getting back to Andrew, you're based in Stockholm. So what about your region and cooperation banks, fintechs there? How you would describe the situation?
Yeah, I'm not really experienced to talk about what's happening in the Baltics, but I definitely agree with the point that I don't think there's a restriction on the country you're going to or you're from. I mean, Meninga as a company was founded out of Iceland, so there's only a few banks, there's like 350,000 people. There's a serious limit to what you can do there. But I think with it, and I think it applies a little bit to the Baltics as well, regardless of country, is that when you have that restriction in your home country, it pushes you to go abroad. But at the same time, it means perhaps you can create a good test bed in the country you're in. So Iceland, even though we do all things white label, we have our own B2C product there, which is a good test platform. We're lucky if it breaks even, but the rest of the business is with other countries. So on that level, then, I think from our perspective, it's not so much, is there a country restriction? I would say it's more, with the software we sell, it's the licenses are user-based. So it's more a restriction on the size of the banks, than the size of the banks are, of course, connected to the population in the country. So the countries where we have most of our solutions are places like Spain, Italy, big populations, Germany, these kind of things. And I think talking around, regulation and how things are supported, then the UK is a prime example where there's a lot of, open banking started there first, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and yet for us, we don't have, well, actually we're coming out with one now, but the UK has always been a tough market for us to crack. And our legal headquarters is there, we have an office there, and that's kind of where, as I said, the kind of main operation is driven from. And yet that's a country that's eluded us, even though it has what you would say is the foundation for fintechs to thrive. But again, that comes down to just individual things like bank mentality. There it's a lot more, we want to do things in-house. They're moving a little bit more to looking at fintechs, but a lot of that tends to be like pilot-driven POCs, but they're such big organizations, you get lost in that. Whereas we found the other countries in Europe and further afield, we're also in Southeast Asia, South Africa, North America, they tend to be a bit more straightforward. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Ruta, we were joking about the Brexit, but speaking seriously, what country you are looking as an example for proper cooperation?
So I guess, firstly, I would like to say that cooperation has no borders. As a licenses has no borders, you have a license, you are able to go to all the Europe. So this is one point I want to enhance. Another point about the cooperation, it depends. Sometimes I tend to have some doubt if cooperation, if opening a bank account in a bank for FinTech should be called cooperation. Because for them it's live or die. You have to open an account because you cannot provide services. And then there is AML and this other stuffs are going on. So this part, I guess, it's the challenging one, and some regulation is introduced to make it more easier. And we are doing also on this part proactively. Another part is cooperation, then you enhancing banking product. And I would really doubt that banks are not cooperating with this. Just an example of Rockit, there's a Swedbank Innovation Hub, the SEB has Innovation Hub, so our two main banks have the Innovation Hubs. They attract their FinTech companies who can enhance their solution, and they are doing that. So at this point, I really doubt that we should talk about that there is a problem there, then there is enhancing a product. But if we are talking about some must things for FinTechs to do, yes, it's a problem, but I wouldn't call it cooperation. So bringing back to your, the country that we set an example, of course, as we are, I'm just joking again, as we are the second one, we have to look at the first one, UK, FCA, I guess it's a role model to all the regulators, how to really gather FinTechs and banks together, create some models. One of them is regulatory sandbox. I want to do some advertisements on that, not only for FinTechs to come, but also for banks to try the new solution, innovatory. What we think is really that sometimes there are a lot of FinTechs who has really great ideas, but they have no partners to cooperate with. And Bank of Lithuania is thinking about thematic regulatory sandbox, that you have an idea and we help you to find a partner in this field that this partner could enhance this product. So having said that, the final remark would be, is really, as a central bank, if we talked about the cooperation with the FinTechs and banks, we, as Bank of Lithuania, we position ourselves as one of the best central banks to make this cooperation happen. And we are thinking, we are hoping that we will have, and we have some results. Very good.
Thank you. So basically, you opened a very, a very interesting topic on cooperation models, and let's briefly then look on them. So one is, of course, what Titas has brought up. So of course, this is a hygiene necessity. So bank as a partner, speaking of operations or being intermediary when having the funds or making operations. But for sure, we have some more. For example, like having a common product or sell for FinTech to sell the product to the bank, just white label it. Or to, I don't know, to do maybe something else. Maybe there is some kind of like third option. So, Donatas, to your mind, what is the best way? What is the most beneficial for the bank? To create common product just for you, to buy white labeled, or to use your infrastructure for FinTech to sell their product to your customer base?
Probably today we have clear agenda, so we want to have cooperation with those FinTech who are solving our problems. So as I told you in terms of Horizon, so we want to gather more deposits, better tickets, and we saw the opportunity in the German market. Then second topic, we wanted to have a ready product, not MVP product, but ready product to make remote customer onboarding, and we get it. So probably when the FinTech comes with the working product and solving our problems, then we are ready for cooperation. And this is the case for us. We have learned some lessons, but in general, we're very happy.
Titas, what would be your expert opinion on the cooperation models?
I'll go back to, again, what FinTech is, right? FinTech is company that provides financial service. No FinTech can provide services to a bank, or barely any besides TransferWise, which is massive, or maybe Instagram that we have in Lithuania, which is also massive, has many licenses in many countries. So obviously, you know, if you want to provide financial services, you need a bank to help you to do that, to provide these services to you. And this is what we call FinTech. And this kind of cooperation is very limited. It doesn't happen. The other kind, where some company sells some product to the bank, okay, that happens, and that is a very good example. We can offer some very good KYC product, make processes in a bank more efficient, in a financial institution, not necessarily a bank, and you know, they go and cooperate, and this kind of cooperation happens in Lithuania. You have Swedbank, Rockit here, you have SEB Bank to have their own innovation center, other banks doing similar things, and this is fine. But the other part, where financial services are needed for FinTechs from the bank, that kind of cooperation we don't have here. The reason why I thought about it before, and there are three main reasons why, and I would say that first one is, well, the problem with the banking sector in Lithuania is that a lot of the decisions are made in Sweden, Denmark, Norway, or at least the confirmation for any decision here. But maybe it's not necessarily the biggest problem. I think second reason, which is a bit bigger, is risk/cost-benefit approach. So for banks here, it's risky to cooperate or provide services to FinTechs. You know, you have to make sure and check how we do AML, KYC, all these kind of things. So yeah, obviously it's costly, risky, right? So banks here are mostly risk averse. But I guess the biggest reason why this kind of cooperation doesn't happen is because correspondent banks don't allow it. And this is very clear, and this has been happening for the last 10 years, especially in Europe, and especially maybe in the US. Some kind of de-risking. For example, Deutsche Bank, the biggest correspondent bank in Europe for US dollars, maybe euros, has been de-risking a lot, cutting a lot of relationship. We have a long list of industries that are not allowed to be your client for the correspondent bank, and FinTech is one of them. So yeah, this problem is obviously not easily solvable. It's not necessarily the fault of the banks here themselves. But yeah, I guess we could kind of try to discuss and look for some other ways how to deal with it.
Corresponding to that, I think that you kind of, with the last sentence, proved that majority of the banks here are probably low risk. And if you take any kind of thing, and this, of course, supplements. I'm not the one to discuss about opening the account and other banking products which relates, but from my experience, let's say, I would say still that we are rather open to opportunities. I think it depends on several things. One is, the key thing is that we try to sense actually which customer problem. I would say here the most important thing is customer. Which customer problem we are not solving. And then you have to kind of then agree internally in the bank that, okay, there is no chance that we will solve this problem. And then you go look for a partner, or partner comes up and opens you that you don't see the problem. And in this case, I believe that this cooperation is totally possible. And what we did, basically, we went out of the scope, let's say what is traditional banking. We created accounting product with already available accounting solution worldwide known. And there were banks, actually, which tried to do that by themselves. One is in Estonia. I will not mention the name. They spent a couple million euros in a couple of years and released the beta version and closed it before even opening to the market because it's too difficult. So what this means is that there are still areas where banks should accept that they will definitely not deliver that by themselves and they need the partners. And FinTechs can come in. The second area where you are directly competing with a bank, and I think this is totally fair, the bank says no. Because, of course, maybe you will create the business model where it's you will earn money, bank will earn more than they currently do, but it's is on the current margin levels which are in the banking area, it's not really realistic that this will happen. So still, everybody are kind of fighting for their place in this open field. So I still see, as I said, I do see even in banking core areas the opportunities, in financing specifically, in payment areas also. I'm quite certain if good ideas and what Donata said, I think is very important, that the product is already there. The product will not be in 2 years. What bank does, well, bank evaluate risk very well, too well probably, but in a sense you have to have the product to cooperate with the bank. We can't trust what will happen in 5 years. So this is a precondition which is a must.
Thank you. And basically, you partially answered the question that we have from the audience. What kind of services banks are ready to buy from FinTech? So we mentioned already several areas. Would you like to go wider?
I would like to split a little bit. What does it mean purchasing the product and partnership? I think there is a big difference in that. Because usually, let's say, and Ludas is here who can supplement to this in more details. Banks are usually solving some operational problems by purchasing something. Where you see that you don't do it well enough, you kind of do more efficiently by purchasing certain software or any kind of know-how. Well, I consider partnership when you are like 50-50. Okay, you bring something, I bring something, and we jointly together, we make it not 1 + 1, but a little bit more than 2. That we combine together.
In the corporate area, B2B area, what are those key areas where we're currently looking to the partnership? Then, can we name something?
I already said. I think even there would be some very well calculated small merchant financing models and so on. They probably would be welcome. I cannot say that we would definitely do that, but I think there is a huge potential there. Not sure if it's really huge in this market. We would need to take a look and very deeply into the business case and so on, but there are definitely potential.
Thank you. Liudas, now it's your turn to speak about which model is more preferable for you. I know that you're working both ways. With the CB, you currently probably are creating something together. Am I right?
Yeah, but still, you see, I cannot talk a lot about the partnership because basically we're still focused on some problem solving and basically just selling to the financial institution. Yeah, so they are kind of consuming our product anyway. But if coming back to the partnership, so just we have to understand that the financial industry itself is a really large product-wise. Yeah, so from the deposits to the credits, payments, schemes different, even some kind of marketplaces and all this stuff. And if talking about the partnership, there's really lots of space to partner with if we talk with the bank or with the financial institution and so on and so on. So we see really lots of examples in the payments industry where the banks cooperates with the serving different type of POS and these kind of stuff. And we see lots of things in the deposits or in the credit industry where the target is either to make it cheaper, either to de-risk it. And it depends actually on the final target of the FinTech, what the actual problem they want to solve. Because if we are just focused on another electronic money institution or another payment institution just issuing the cards and doing the payments and doing the same stuff, it's already boring. Yeah, so because it's already the past, like 5-6 years ago, we did that stuff, and it's gone. So we have to focus on some actual real problems that the users now have, and if we have the solution to solve it, So then we have the possibility to partner with the financial institution. If we are just, as mentioned, if we are just focusing on kind of challenging the bank or something, so of course we cannot expect the partnership. It's impossible, you know. Just if coming to the bank, I had the same situation, you know, that I came to one bank, I will not name it, but it was just to negotiate about the accounts and all the stuff. It was like 5 years ago, and they came with that time verslo žinios on the front paper, like you know, our company was in a conflict with that bank, you know, and it's like, so now we will have a talk about the partnership, you know. So it's really difficult to talk in this position. But if you're actually focused on some kind of problem that a financial institution or any other institution or the consumers can have, so there's really lots of space for partnership. So it really depends. And if talking about the bank as the customer, so we have to understand that it's a huge, large corporations. So I think that, you know, they have lots of good examples from the document management, CRM systems, and these kind of stuff that they consume as just the entities, as the enterprises. It's not a FinTech partnership. It's just you know, consumers, but it's the same. Yeah. So it's the same with the RECTech, with the other techs, even with the PayTechs. That's what's going on, and that they are just buying the solutions.
Thank you, Andrew. We have a question for you from the audience, actually. And the question is, was your cooperation with Swedbank successful from the first try, or it was a long way?
Or it was a what, sorry?
Or it was a long way.
A long way. Sounds like somebody with insider knowledge. No. Well, it hasn't finished yet, so we're working on a few initiatives with Swedbank. They're both going live actually this year. And there's another one in the works. So maybe on that topic, to kind of link back to the previous question. Then the models that we offer are basically white label software, so it's just a license that banks consume. And that's a model where I would say they're more comfortable with. It aligns with the traditional bank's kind of feeling of how they want to do stuff. They want to take a product, they want to own it, they want it preferably on-premise, although that's changing. Could still be cloud, but it's still on-premise in the cloud. But that's where we're seeing most of our partnerships so far going. But with this other product that we're working on, then we've created a platform. So basically the banks are consuming what we have as a service, which basically means that we look after the whole operation of the product, the technology, the operational side. The bank then just consumes the product via an API within their digital channels. But then in terms of which model the banks prefer or which is better for them, it's a difficult one to answer. I think they're kind of torn. They want control, but at the same time they realize that once they have the solution, they're more restricted to what they can do. So a bit of context on Meninga, the kind of core solution we have is that we help banks to kind of unify and consolidate all of their data from all sources. That's credit cards, all transaction data, all sources. And then we enrich the data. So if you basically look at the likes of Monzo, we can kind of allow banks to deliver that kind of experience. Just cleaned up data, nice merchant information, maps, categorization, and then insights. And like on that topic of merchant mapping as an example, if you want to show a transaction and then you want to show the exact location of where that transaction took place, banks want to do that. So it's like, yeah, brilliant, we'll take that software, we'll do it. And then after a few months, yeah, I didn't realize we need a full-time resource doing this. You know, so it's that mixture where you want to do it, but then you realize your limitations, that there comes a point when resources need to move between projects, something gets a bit disbanded. So therefore, I think the actual model they will prefer and will be allowed to prefer soon is things like this as a service. If you want categorization, if you want to just give your customers knowledge of that transaction was with Starbucks, which is a coffee shop, or this is the location of that merchant, we can manage this and then we can just provide you with the output. And I think, yeah, that's the preference, but I think right now they're limited to being able to do that.
So basically something similar what we see with a marriage example, right? So it's not the end of the fairy tale, everything is just begins, right? So after you make the deal, so then it's the long process of the integration and fixing the things before you launch the product or the service, right? But how about the deal? How fast was it? How fast to close?
Well, it depends. I mean, you've got the deal as in talking to the bank, getting them to sign a contract.
How it started, I don't know.
With Swedbank.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a typical process. You're either at an event or you contact them. A typical process, which is probably similar to Swedbank, is it can be around 9 months to a year, which is a long time. But that's about normal because there is all sorts of processes, different stakeholders that you have to meet with. And that's, of course, the difference between fintechs and banks. Banks have got a lot of processes to go through. Fintechs, at the same time, we're operating at a much kind of faster speed. So it is a bit of a balance to try and align these two. And when I mean that you're a fintech, you have, okay, even though we're quite mature, you still have to think about cash flow. So I think this is the balance that banks and fintechs are realizing now that we have to more meet on, which is banks also have to be supportive to fintechs. They need to move quicker and be more adaptive so that, yeah, the fintechs can also grow.
Thank you. Ruta, about cooperation models, you already expressed your opinion. What do you consider as a cooperation? And we have actually a personal question for you from the audience. How often Bank of Lithuania invite fintech players to Lithuania market development discussion, but not conferences? What do you do, actually? Maybe you could tell how you fix this, how you manage those relations.
Okay, so one thing is we are not the one warrior in a field. We have a network of governmental agencies, institutions who gather, and we have a group for promoting FinTech regulation. I mean, that would really easier the way to introduce innovative solution, both for banks, for FinTechs. So here is the place also to cooperate and to solve the problems of FinTechs. And we are really know that all the associations of fintechs that participate and all the fintechs with the great ideas how to improve the regulation are welcome. So this is one part, and as I said, another part is some project what we have. I don't know if I should touch the problem about the account opening for fintechs.
Let's do it. Why not?
Let's open the door. Okay. So truly, what I feel and what we see is the key phrase that corresponding banking was just thrown here as a card. And what is the problem now that at every rejection of opening an account, the corresponding banking card is here. And I feel that sometimes maybe banks are too often using it. Because corresponding banking, just to be clear, is about US dollars and reachability to US dollars. And our investigation on the 3% of the payments, of all payments of e-money and payment institution are done in US dollars. So other vast majority, 13.7, is in other currencies and euros. So I guess to address only to corresponding banking, it would be not fear in this field. Another thing, what we see, yes, of course, there is a competition. FinTech, especially in payments, they are some kind of competitors for a bank, but they cannot live without banks. So what we see as a regulator, how we could step in, is really, we see that banks, they need some education. We talk with some compliance officers, and sometimes they don't understand the e-money institution business, and why do they need a bank account. And one of the reasons is really to safeguard your funds as a client, because e-money institution, they have to protect your funds by just keeping in a separate account in a credit institution. And mass majority of e-money institutions, they do that because there is another possibilities to safeguard, like buying very costly insurance at Lloyd's in UK, so it's real costly and only valuable for big enterprises. So we are talking about 97 of companies who needs a banking account. So as a Bank of Lithuania, we see this, okay, AML and KYC is really, really like a theme that we have to cope in. And on the other hand, we should agree with the banks that maybe fintechs are not how to say, the standards of compliance are maybe not the same, and we have examples on when the Bank of Lithuania issued some fines for discrepancies in AML. And this is true, there is some problems in some cases, but maybe not. But how can we address this anyway? So one of the thoughts what we are thinking, and we are thinking to introduce both to the banks and FinTechs, that banks could open different types of accounts. And they should open not only like one account for operational needs, for clients' payments, and for safeguarding, that they could separate different products for FinTechs. And one of the products that is the key for FinTechs is segregation account. And it should be really limited in operation. And it could be, and we see as a lower risk as other like usual account, because then it could work. It just the client funds come in the name of e-money institution and goes out at the day of in another day. So this is a possibility, and we are like a Bank of Lithuania will introduce this thing. Just finalizing about the cooperation, I know one very great example about the cooperation with FinTechs and banks. It's about cash management. I don't know if you know, but in Lithuania, banks are closing their offices in rural areas. And there is a really great case when bank says, we are closing down, but don't worry, there is a payment institution in your shop who provides services of cash and can accept your card, and you can cash out and can accept your card. So this is a great example of cooperation. Then the bank itself, it introduced to a FinTech company that the client is able to have this all these services as regards also cash management in place.
Thank you. So reflecting as well to this topic, maybe let's ask one more question on that from your side, Liudas. Maybe solving this risk problem or minimizing the risk when having the payments from FinTech inside the bank, or from opening the infrastructure or keeping the funds. Maybe from technology perspective, you as an expert in KYC and ML area, maybe we shall expect some solutions upcoming to help us.
Well, so there are lots of initiatives and solutions for solving this question, because if in general the fraud, the money laundering, and this is the issue for everyone, for the society, for the financial industry, and all the stuff, because the costs for managing the frauds, the risks, the compliance, money laundering is just increasing day by day. So all kind of solutions are kind of always welcomed in the financial industry, from the regulator's perspective as well. And we had in the summit time, we had an initiative with the LB chain as well, and so there's lots of things developing there. Also, there are some initiatives within the banks, within the non-banks, to fight with this question. From the other hand, if talking about the solutions, so sometimes everyone expects the regulator, the central bank, to take a look at this as well. And an example for the remote onboarding or something, so maybe to have some kind of list of providers that are checked by the regulator and all the stuff that the financial institutions can trust. And that would help as well. Because now there's a bit of gray area, how it has to be done, what is allowed, what is not, and some are focused just on the user experience, some on the compliance issues, and this is creating some gap and misunderstanding as well within the financial institutions, the banks, and the other FinTechs, because the same accounts issue, in example, sometimes is just for the procedures, because they don't understand how the electronic money institution or the payment institution is actually doing the compliance, doing the boarding of the users, and what kind of funds are with the account. So there are a few topics that can be actually touched by the regulator as well, and that could help to solve this issue.
Thank you. And basically what as well you were all reflecting, actually, that partnerships require commitments from both sides. And we have the question from the audience, that are FinTechs open to go extra mile from their side, for example, allow banks to enrich their database with the data collected by FinTechs. So this is a question probably to to you, Titas.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question is that are fintechs open to go extra mile from their side? For example, allow banks to enrich their databases with the data collected by fintechs.
Yes, I would say yes, because okay, now when we want to work with a bank, when we want to open an account and provide some services, get some services from a bank, we have to fill in a lot of questionnaires, which we do. We have to get audits from third parties, which we do, pay a lot of money, and we do go extra mile, right? About data, yeah, of course, there are different ways how you do this. You know, it can be on-site audit, it can be random check, random sharing of data, it can be something similar like we've been trying to work out with the central bank, GovTech, RegTech initiative, where the idea is that we just allow central bank to take all the data that we have, and for now on payments from our databases at any time to form the reports, quarterly reports. So that's the aim of this project that that is currently in development. If you're interested in it, tomorrow 10 o'clock we have an event here on it. So this is something we are doing, and of course we are, I think, willing to open up and listen to commercial banks and work in the way they want, just because we have no other choice. We cannot survive without them. So obviously, I think this is a no-brainer question. We are willing to go extra mile.
Thank you. We have a special question for Donatas. The colleague is reflecting that Luminor is planning to issue mortgage bonds next year in Lithuania. So due to lower costs of attracting deposits, is it a sustainable model to keep raising as a partner for Medicinos Bankas?
I know this.
You know this guy?
I know this guy. He's a smart guy. Thank you very much. Yeah, probably to answer quite quickly this question, it will be simple. Yeah, we think that sustainable business with Rising will stay for us, and probably we believe that that we have issued our bonds, yeah, and still we have. Under our prospects, we have a possibility to get extra more money from the market if it will be necessary. But today, what we see that the cost of the money in the German market, it's I would say lower than here. The size of the tickets, it's 10 times bigger than here, and average German citizen able to put for 3 years in term deposit. So in bonds, well, usually what we have, 5 years, 3, something like that. So probably term deposit is much more cheaper, and today quite sustainable source of fund.
Thank you. I would like to answer myself, Regiment, as you, as I know that you have much of experience in partnership and piloting the projects. Maybe you would like to mention some most challenging things in pilots with the third parties.
Well, probably the biggest challenge I ever had was to, before the PSD2 was even in the horizon, to convince the bank to go to third parties. Meaning I will again repeat, not to buy something, but to basically create a product together with somebody else. And not even hide that you are actually, not even take the white labeled product, but actually under the both brands. So, and there was actually a question, I think, to Andrew, how much it takes time. So it took me 2 years to get approved. I'm not sure if it is. Actually, I think right now it wouldn't take as long because it's different times. Back then it was like the primary example. Either you go at all or you don't go at all. So I think right now it wouldn't take as much time. It's rather a question of putting the right effort actually towards that. Yet, I think that what are the good examples is basically, I think data-driven pilots were actually very nice. If you calculate whom you are offering certain thing, but like really calculate pretty well, and you analyze the activity of the customer, and then you offer something, you get the data which is times better than it is in the market. Let's say we did a pilot with Deeper, so many of you know what Deeper is. And actually the results of customer reflections from what we have been offering, and you take the success story, what Google has percentage-wise, so I think we had 2 or 3 times better percentages in the opening of the offering, on purchases as well, and so on. So we did a couple of those. So of course, the usage of the bank internal data is pretty much a key thing in basically in those end product cooperations. But you have to define and understand what you are offering, to whom you are offering, and then is there any kind of, I would say, not necessarily a problem or opportunity at all. Is it not that you think that there is a problem or opportunity? So it really depends, because there were good examples, and as well there were some which I saw very bad examples which have failed. But that's how we learn.
Yeah, thank you. We have actually the question. It's a question to Ekaterina. How many FinTechs Swedbank is cooperating with in Baltics and in Sweden? I'm afraid that I'm not the right person to answer and to calculate them all, but maybe Regimantas, you can help me. I know that we have at least 4, but can we name them? Meninga, Mina Technologies.
Yes.
Continue.
Well, we have basically the let's call it Erpli, not Erpli Books in general, Erpli Group. Also, there are some ongoing projects in Sweden, which are happening. And in Baltics, there are ongoing activities, but unfortunately, I cannot disclose them.
How many in Lithuania?
So we with Lithuanian FinTechs, right? So
well, I can give you an example. Let's say when we thought that we want to go to accounting as an end product. So our innovation group, despite we all work for Baltics, were 5 Lithuanians, and we actually chose Estonian. Due to simple reason, there were no good accounting tools in Lithuania created by Lithuanians. Very simple reason. No good ones.
no, we as well.
There are certain products which are really good here, and there are certain products which are not. And it really depends.
One comment here from my side is, because you said it several times, so basically I think we understand FinTech a bit differently, right? You understand it as someone trying to sell you some product and provide you some service. I understand FinTech as your client, which maybe serves some different group of clients. And let's take best known example, Moku, right? Moku in Lithuania, right? We serve, I guess, certain clients that use mobile phone or would like to use mobile phone to make a payment with QR code, not card. And yeah, I think Moku also has struggled in Lithuania to find partners, to find bank account, payments, and so on. Of course, we solved it somehow and we found some banks. But this is what I guess I mean from my side, but this is where we struggle a bit to be a client of a bank rather than provide a service to the bank. And you know, accounting is not FinTech in my opinion. And a lot of other IT services or CRM, anything, it's not really FinTech. So I'm talking, you know, as a guy who wants to provide financial services, and I just need partnership with a bank that can help me. And maybe I just target a bit different client, or I just have different business model or a different idea, but I need a bank.
I'm not really sure that actually Moku is not a competition to the bank, in a sense, from general logic, but I think Ludas kind of gave a very good example that the regulator has to step in here as well. Because there are certain things which are from regulator expected from the banks, and they are very strictly placed. And then there is a reason actually that there is a request, let's say, from your side. So I think that the rules can be described clearly on the paper, and it's probably up to regulator to say so. If you just like what you mean, this partnership is basically just receiving an account or being activated as a certain specific product of the bank. So I'm not really sure that.
Yes, always blame regulator, you know, always.
No, and I know that you're working on things like that. And
No. I mean from the Sweden, because I just wonder if you could just tell example what kind of strict thing you have other than my institution have in which field? No, I ask Regimantas.
No, what I mean is that what I said, that a regulator could define the rules, that neither we can overcome them and neither, let's say, regulator can overcome them. There is a clear rules by which we are forced, let's say, to act. Because at the moment, let's say, probably, I'm not an expert here, we can say no. Then we will not be able to say no. We will be obliged to provide the service, as to anybody else.
Let me step into the panelist side and as well answer Tida's question regarding Lithuanian fintech. So actually my daily job at Rocket is to find some Lithuanian cooperations. So I hope that, looking forward, we will have what to be proud of and a story to tell. So, and speaking about Liudas, we probably are buying some services from you, right? Am I right? Yeah. At least I saw our logo on the screen when you were pitching.
Yeah, but let's keep it the same as it's written in the contract, okay? That's, you see, the problem Titas is pointing is actually the real problem for let's say majority of the fintechs that have the license in Lithuania. Yeah, so and it is just a kind of so big that now no one kind of thinks that's a problem, that because everyone is avoiding that. Yeah, so because it is a matter of the kind of understanding of what we actually want to build in this country, what kind of fintech environment and community and ecosystem we want to have here. And Regimantis is right as well, because the regulator has to, so it's not blaming the regulator, but just to step in a bit and to define some kind of what the ecosystem we want to have here. Either cooperating with each other, supporting each other and giving the channels and kind of trying to innovate something and to serve maybe sometimes underserved, maybe unbanked, maybe other countries and all the stuff, but just to a bit of define the rules, because now in my strong belief, because I went through all of this, yeah, so I really had accounts, I don't know, in all the Lithuanian banks and all the Latvian banks and all the Estonian banks, Polish banks, Romanian, Bulgarian, you name it, so at one time I had like 90 bank accounts operating. And with every single each of them, the same discussion was what we are actually doing there, and if we are just direct competitor or just giving the high-risk transactions to them, or what the hell we want, and the explaining that it was a really difficult issue, and from the other perspective, the bank was always afraid if that they're not breaking some kind of rules. Yeah, so because opening the account for the payments institution or the any kind of financial institution it means that taking some kind of risk. So I see now really good examples of how fintechs are open on opening the data and giving the accesses if they need to the compliance data and this kind of part. So they're if the institution understands or the fintech understands what they're actually serving, and they're open and they're giving the accesses, but it's not always the case, and of course the banks are afraid of those not the case, and one of the 100, because maybe 96 of the licenses they're really fine and serving some good things and doing really good stuff, but maybe one of those will create the biggest problems in the industry and in the sector. And the same, we know now what is happening with the Deutsche, yeah, so it's not a new problem. I think it's like the Fed letter for the banks to close the accounts and to cut the corridors, and it will happening with all the others. It's always happening. So, and that's the banks are afraid of, because they still have to serve their own clients. Their own customers, their corporates and all the stuff. And that's, always the balance between the risks and the wish of doing something extra.
Thank you. And I have one more quick question for Andrew. True or false that big bank means big customer base and big sales potential? So from your shoes, working with a big bank, does it really mean?
Yeah, I mean, based on what I explained before, the license model we have, then sure, yeah, if it's a big bank with a big customer base, then our licenses increase by the size of the customer base, so that is true. But it depends on, I guess, just how you view, the partnership, as in what's success. Okay, it's one thing to sell a license, but for us as well as a white label provider, like any fintech that is trying to build up a reputation, your next move, your next step is based off the success of what you've done before. So it's natural they will ask, what references do you have? Who have you worked with? It's great to list the big banks, but sometimes they're not necessarily the best references because it's more difficult for them to perhaps innovate as fast as the smaller banks or the mid-sized banks that are having to struggle a bit more. So yeah, it's a good sales process, but I wouldn't necessarily say in terms of a success, there's a correlation between size and success. I would say it's perhaps more, size doesn't make a difference. It's all down to the bank and just how they're structured and their culture when it comes to digital transformation.
Thank you. And the question to Ruta now, a bit on lessons learned probably as well, like related with the same topic. So from regulators' perspective, in terms of successful and unsuccessful cooperation, maybe you could name some examples of successful, unsuccessful, and we have the question from the audience, what is the most successful cooperation in Lithuania to your mind?
I guess for me, to name the most successful cooperation, it would not be very good in this place, but as regards to the successful cooperation, I see really in fields, and there comes really good fintech companies, but not licensed one, who provide some solution for banks that they don't know, some, as we already discussed, in some unknown areas. For example, credit scorings, credit evaluation of the client. There we introduce some other interesting technologies like artificial intelligence, like machine learning, something that is already being done in some other countries, and in Lithuania it's coming, and I see the field of this is spreading also in a banks. As regards bad cooperation, I haven't seen, because for me a bad cooperation would be then bank would say no just for a reason of by default not even trying to understand. So for me, I don't see the bad cooperation. But as examples, what I could see as one of the good examples of PSD2. Before the PSD2 were introduced, there are already the market participants who have been providing payment initiation services in Lithuania, and we have a struggle to think what to do with them, because PSD2 is still not in force. And really we had the really good understanding of the banks that anyway PSD2 is here and they have to open their client bank accounts, and we helped to introduce some kind of model or guidelines how these third-party providers have to behave. So I guess in this field it's very good cooperation that is evolving and evolving. I also want just to finalize this topic on AML and all this stuff. So maybe there is not like one side. Yes, of course, we need a balance, and what we are trying to do here is really that both in FinTech area to make the highest standard of this compliance culture. You know, for banks, it's in the blood, you know, to have this high compliance standard.
Sure.
Yes, of course, there is some discrepancies, of course. So for FinTechs, sometimes, yes, for them, they have to understand that they are also financial institution, and they have to obey for playing rules that all have. So as a Bank of Lithuania, we see the role in this, just to reminding all the time that we are all on the same boat, really, and if in our market there can be some kind of scandals, so it's all on us, not only on one player. So, yes.
Yeah, thank you. A very good insight and a question maybe for all of us as we are approaching the end of our discussion. So maybe we could share some advices for best cooperation. What, Donatas, you consider as the root cause and what you could advise to banks or to FinTechs or I don't know, to all of us?
Well, first of all, you see my contacts, yeah? My name, first name, last name. Please find me on LinkedIn. I hope that you're having what to offer for us. I will be open to discuss about cooperation. Today, what I'm looking for a solution who's able to help for corporates make easy calculation of business models. Why I'm looking for that, you should understand. So if you want to financing some corporates, they should come with a business case. And based on regulator, we're providing for them a lot of Excels. They should fill a lot of information, financial information, and make some forecast. Unfortunately, it's a very hot topic for CFOs who works in the small, medium enterprises. So guys, if you want to make something good, so please come with MVP.
Approach Donatas.
Yeah, approach me with MVP in this area. I'll be open to talk because this topic is on our table.
So you can do this meeting at Rocket.
Yeah, why not?
Invite you. Okay. Titas, some wishes or comments to our Banks Garden or advices to FinTech?
Maybe I'll a bit comment about Virgimantas and others, Ludas maybe saying that we expect central bank to do a bit more in terms of matching banks and FinTechs. I think we, as FinTechs, we don't expect central bank to do a lot here because at least I know very well that we have limitations and we cannot just tell you how to do your business. We cannot say do this and charge this, and so obviously you have to kind of figure out a bit of it yourself, meaning that okay, now you have 200 companies that are FinTech or at least claim to be FinTech in Lithuania. This number is growing, obviously it's not gonna go away, and this is, I guess, some kind of potentially new market for you as a client, as a partnership, right? And so for me, I guess the message that I want to say is let's meet and talk, and I can at least introduce a lot of these companies or explain a lot of these companies that are our members, electronic money institutions, payment institutions. Some of them are P2P, crowdfunding, but these are maybe not necessarily the most problematic ones. But and then maybe you will see, of course, you might not want to work with all of them, but you will see some synergies where some of these companies serve certain clients that you do not serve, right? And then at the same time, I definitely expect more from banks that are Lithuanian capital, like Medicinos Bankas, Šiaulių Bankas, and the new ones like Mano Bankas. I know that Mano Bankas actually aims to provide services for FinTechs as clients, because obviously there's big potential there, big potential for growth, big potential for clients and different clients in different areas. So, my I guess invitation is that okay, let's meet and talk, and at least I can explain you what we need and how our business models are created and how we follow AML, how we follow KYC. And we do that because we have the same requirements as you do, and we follow the same laws and same directives.
Your advice, Regimantas.
Okay, I have maybe 2 points. One is you mentioned that accounting is not a FinTech, so half of European biggest accounting softwares are already FinTechs because they applied for not banking, but at least for PSPs. So they are already, and that's absolutely logical step considering what sort of regulations are coming. So in a sense, we from the bank as well kind of evaluate that risk as well. So my encouragement and the end in this discussion would be that when you create the initial product, especially I would say in B2B market, initially you might think that you are not creating a FinTech, but later on you will find certain monetizing ways, and you will become a FinTech maybe later on when you have the enough customer base where actually payments become really actual, and there is no point to have a bank at all. And in this case now, I see worldwide trends actually, that the banks have understood that they are underserving actually small companies. So they are integrating super good scoring systems, which have excelled in the market. I think this will come here. So if anybody has really good ideas how to understand small businesses, please come.
One more hint for cooperation.
Well, I think it's for any bank. I don't think any bank in this market understands small businesses, how they operate, how to evaluate the risks, and so on. Also, it is actually, I still would like to stay customer-centric. And I think that I wouldn't want to limit to FinTech, or we used a lot of terms like ROCKITech and so on. But if you have a specific area where you solve customers' problem really, really well, I think any bank will be interested. At these times when those APIs and other stuff is absolutely like a given at the moment, so I do believe that the opportunities to cooperate with the banks are as open as they have never been at the moment.
Thank you. Liudas, your turn. Whom you would like to advise, banks or fintechs?
Yeah, well, I will end with what I've started with. So my advice is just to be actually more supportive to each other, more cooperative with each other, and listening to each other, because we are too small community to compete with each other. So that's my only advice, actually, just to be more open and to listen to each other, what kind of problem we have, and try to solve them, but just not to say no. So that's my single advice.
Thank you. Very good advice. Andrew, your turn.
Yeah, I'm going to build on that one. I completely agree with that. And I think we're seeing more of this. I think when, a few years ago you had banks and fintechs, and it was seen that the fintechs were actually challenging the banks and they weren't sure how to deal with them. Whereas now I think it's pretty clear that together, if it's the right kind of partnership, then you can create something great. So definitely on that point for banks to be more open and just more transparent. So I think if you want a successful project, it's not enough just to go to a vendor and say, okay, you're satisfying this use case, and then bring them in and almost spit them out, and it's just, okay, we'll deal with it from here. I think it's both parties being humble. I think fintechs have become less cocky, which is good, and banks have been a bit more open to listen to what fintechs have to say, to understand that they have good advice to bring. So for sure, doing that. And I think the role you're covering, there's a counterpart in Sweden that I'm dealing with at Swedbank as well. And for sure, having somebody who's taking ownership of fintechs within the bank is key, because otherwise it ends up again as a single project that becomes siloed. You then do it, resources are there, and then they've gone again. And then the whole impetus is gone. And then you forget actually what that fintech can do. You're out there again looking for fintechs that can do this without realizing maybe you have one already that can satisfy that need. So yeah, I think those are the kind of two main things from a bank perspective. And from a fintech, I don't know, I mean, there's so many things to say, but I think, again, the same applies. It's about being humble, but definitely understanding from the other side of the fence that the restrictions that banks have, that it's not that easy to do things as quickly as you would like, having to spend a lot more time than you would anticipate in speaking to the right people and giving everybody comfort, not just trying to go in and quickly make a sale. So yeah, I think it's just, in both cases, investing in the relationship and making it something that can be a successful long-term partnership.
Thank you. And Ruta, sorry to interrupt you, but we have one question. Probably you can make a guess on it. So it's one additional one. Sounds like this, like PSD2 has created a legal obligation for banks to cooperate with payment providers. So probably this is a hint to the PISP licensing. And should the next PSD directive include rules for cooperation in other areas? So would you like to comment on that? Or any others could as well help?
If we talk about the open banking itself, so I guess the payments are the pioneer in this field. And I feel to introduce other cooperations, maybe we don't need the regulation, because just why I'm telling this, because data protection regulation already said that your data should be opened and you could use it and send to another provider. So this is the right of data portability. So maybe we should get used to that the owner of the data is a client, and all the products should be shifted on this knowledge. And there is a great opportunity to use this. And this would be my
So
answer.
basically, it's one more hint where to focus in cooperations, searching for cooperation, right? And maybe some more wishes or some hints,
If it's
advices.
the final word, so I would like to summarize. You know, there's a really great advisors, and we talked about it's already for an hour and more. And now there's a time to walk the talk. Just do it, let's do it, and solve some issues that are really the basics, that the most important. This would be my advice.
Thank you. Before we jump to networking, and I hope we still have some drinks there. Yes, we do. So I would like, of course, to thank you, dear guests, for answering the questions, and for the audience for asking very good questions. So thank you so much, and I hope that, yes, today we haven't found any kind of like solution for the problems that were raised on the stage. But, you know, today our target was to raise them and to start talking about them more and more closer. So I hope to see you soon as well at Rocket and continue discussing these interesting things. So thank you so much. So have a good evening. Enjoy networking. Bye.